Hello, everyone. I'm Melina Palmer. Excited to have you here on this live broadcast from the Brainy Business Podcast to talk about structuring complex choices, which is the most recent episode of the podcast, episode 41. If you want to get your freebie worksheet to help you work through some of the things we're talking about now, and so you can go apply that information after the listening to this live, you can go ahead and do that at thebrainybusiness.com/41, where you can get your worksheet. And there are worksheets for all 7 of the episodes in this series on nudges, which started back on episode 35. So we've been talking about nudges and choice architecture in general was episode 35. And then I went through all 6 categories of nudges. So we talked about incentives, understanding mapping, defaults, expecting error, giving feedback, and structuring complex choices. And I know I flipped the E and the G, so it ended up being a little bit of a funky, it looks weird in the episode. It looks like I messed up, which is kind of funny since I moved expecting error when that happened. But it made more sense to expect error and then give feedback on it. Structuring complex choices is kind of like the advanced version of understanding mapping. So that episode 37 is really valuable and helpful as well. So you'll want to check that out. For anyone who's watching live, welcome. Glad to have you here. Brain and I are both happy to have you here. Feel free to ask questions that you might have throughout the post. You can go ahead and type them in the comments. You can also, if you're watching this after the fact, you can either comment put your questions in the comments. You can also email them to me, melina@thebrainybusiness.com, and I can talk about them in a future live. Or you can communicate with me here. You can send them via Twitter or on Facebook, where you can find me as the Brainy Biz, B-I-Z. Always happy to include those in for future episodes. So, structuring complex choices. Our businesses are full of choices and things we're asking people to do all the time. And things might seem like they're really simple choices that we're asking people to make, but we can unnecessarily make them really complex without realizing it. And when a choice is too complex, our brains get overwhelmed. This was the focus of episode 32. And then people can't make a decision. So it's your job as a business owner or someone working in a business to help structure the choice so that someone can actually get the information that they need. They understand the value of the choice and they can get there. That's how you understand the mapping. In complex choices, there are really 2 types of a choice that you're trying to make. So the kind of most ideal situation is where a choice is complex, but you can really experience as many aspects of it as you need to in order to make a decision. So the example in the episode, which is borrowed from Richard Thaler and Sunstein's from both Nudge and their article on choice architecture, which I've referenced a lot in this series, is if you've been offered a new job, it's in a new city, a place you've never lived before, we'll say it's on the other side of the country, and you're able to go visit once before you actually are making your big move. And you have 2 big decisions to make. One is which office you want to move into. And number 2 is that you have to decide where you're going to live. So pretty standard choices, things we're familiar with. The first type of choice for the offices, we will say for our example, that you have 3 locations to choose from. So there are 3 office buildings. Each one has one specific office inside of it, and you get to pick which one you want. In that case, you get to look at all the choices together and everything, and you can kind of create your own economic balancing and say what a certain item is worth compared to something else. So in the case of the office, maybe you're going to be looking at overall location, its proximity to food items that you like, or being close to the train, or friends that you might be moving into this new city that you would be able to see. Also, so there's square footage of the office. There's if they have a view or not. There's if it's in a location with people you like or particularly don't. If one office was next to someone who talks really loud or is otherwise obnoxious and you don't want to be in that space, or one's on a bottom floor, one's on the top floor. all sorts of things, but you can actually go visit all three. You can make some sort of a decision on what matters to you and sort of balance, like, there's no amount of square footage that makes up for sitting next to this person or what does a window size equate to in square footage, things like that. So you're able to look at everything, make your complex choice, but you're still going to be valuing different things, give a little bit of give and take in there. The other option is where you have to go through something called elimination by aspects. So when looking at an apartment, let's say, you have to go through and get rid of large chunks because there are far too many apartments to be able to go see them all. It would be a full-time job for somebody to go through and look at every single apartment that could ever be a possibility. And there's so much inventory turnover, you could never do it. So what you want to do is you would make some sort of sweeping decision and say, it has to be under $1,500 a month. It has to be over 1,000 square feet. It has to have at least 2 bedrooms. It has to have 1.5 bathrooms. It needs to have a separate kitchen, whatever. It needs to have laundry in the unit, or maybe it doesn't. It needs to be pet friendly, or maybe that doesn't matter. It needs to be a certain location from work. So you can take those criteria and do these huge sweeping eliminations to get to what you want to make a choice. And websites like Expedia, Zillow, and all sorts of others have made it really easy for us to do this now. And it's something we're pretty familiar with in the concept of making choices. So complex choices have been made to where they're not having to feel so overwhelming because these have been structured really well. So they also allow you to see photos and things like that to help you make the decision. What you're able to do is you can put in your criteria and then pick the best that's available. You're running the risk of where there could be that you get a decent apartment that's $1,500 and it's exactly 1,000 square feet, and it's a little bit it's a little bit closer to where you want to be, but it smells a little bit musty. It's an old building, versus maybe there was a 3-bedroom that was $1,550 or $1,650 that was a little bit further away, but because you had a full elimination, say it was 32 minutes away and you said it had to be 30 minutes away from the office, that it completely was off your radar and you missed it. And so that's the risk you run when you're looking at these elimination by aspect sort of decisions. So why does this matter for you and for your business and when you're helping people to make a choice? So when you think about choices, this sort of paradox of choice, as they call it, is we feel like people want more choices. You may think that people want to hear a lot more, see a lot more. They want everything possible that they could look at so they can make an informed choice. The problem is that while that logically sounds right, we get overwhelmed really easily, and too many choices mean you're not going to actually do anything with the information. So there's a famous study that was done, in a grocery store, and they had a table where you could try like 24 different types of jams or jellies. So people are going in and they sample. What happened was a lot of people tried all these different jams. I'm sure some were quite exotic, but not very many people actually bought. And that's because it's too overwhelming. And you think, yeah, I'm going to think on it. I'll come back later. In the opposite example, they had only 3 types of jam, and you had a lot less people doing a taste test, but a lot more sales. And that's because if you taste a jam, you feel like you're making a good choice. Maybe you taste 2 and your brain feels like it did this evaluation. This is the concept of relativity, which was the focus of episode 12. And you're able to make a really quick comparison, feel like you did some due diligence, feel good about your decision. And then you start thinking about what it would be like if, toast came back into your life, and then you go pick up some bread, out the door, there you go. So it's a much easier choice to be able to make, and it doesn't have to be so complex. And when you make it complex, it's hard to make a decision. I give an example in the episode of, say you go to order toast at a restaurant So you go to a diner and you are waiting for somebody to come by and say, okay, they're going to be about 20 minutes. I'll just go ahead and get a piece of toast and a cup of coffee or whatnot. And they say, wonderful, we specialize in toast or in sauces and spreads. So we've got all these options to choose from. Do you want strawberry, sugar-free strawberry, seedless strawberry, extra seeded strawberry, raspberry lime, vanilla, Nutella plus peanut butter, and we've got maple bacon and mango madness and lavender grape, whatever. Go through this whole long list, say, which one do you want? You probably go, you know what, I'll just have coffee. Not worth making the choice. I don't want to deal with this. There are probably times throughout your business that you're overwhelming people with this sort of a decision. If you've ever experienced this or you've seen it, go ahead and give a thumbs up, a like, a heart, something like that. Maybe give a comment for where you've experienced this in the past, either if you know you've done this in your own business or if you've seen it somewhere else where you just kind of go, yikes, not worth it, not worth the effort, don't want to deal with that. People make this mistake in advertisements all the time. If we go back to episode 2 of the podcast, the top 5 wording mistakes businesses make, which is it's actually the second most popular episode of the podcast. I talk about one of those 5 is too much. Too much information causes people to where they can't make a choice. They can't move forward and do something, even as simple as the click here or subscribe or whatever it happens to be. You just get stuck and you're not going to do anything when too much is presented to you. And complex choices can definitely get us to that point very quickly. So there is a point, though, where having a lot of choice is valuable and important. So where you would want to do something like this is if there was a store that exclusively all they have is toast. That's like you're going to a restaurant, it's called toast or jam or spread or something. And that's all that they sell. You would really expect to have a ton of choices to go through, but they're going to be categorized in some way. So you have savory spreads versus fruit spreads versus chocolate versus nuts, whatever it is. And then those categories come up and maybe you can mix them and match them, but you're going in with the intention of having a lot of choices of spreads and mix-ins and things like that. And that is a benefit. It would be similar to if you've ever been to a Cold Stone Creamery and they have all the ice creams and mix-ins. There are a lot of options there for you to make it easy. In your business, you can look at either streaming down and making it so it's a lot easier to make a choice. There are less choices involved, or it makes it ordered in a way that it's easier for someone to make a choice. Think about those aggregating sites I was talking about earlier, or just not putting everything out front. Just because you have 50 options doesn't mean you have to throw them all at somebody right away. You want to give them an option to try one or two, see if they're ready to make a decision. And if not, then you can move on. The other thing that you can do, though, is sometimes there's a lot of benefit in allowing for additional choice. So maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I'm not sure exactly when, Coca-Cola started making their freestyle machines, which you've maybe seen. Go ahead and give a like or a heart I love these. I know our kids love these sorts of things, but where you can go and you can say you want Coke and then you want a raspberry mix-in or a strawberry mix-in or vanilla, or you could have them mixed into Fanta or Dr. Pepper, or whatever it is. You can do all the different mix-ins and create your own soda, essentially. And it gives the restaurant the opportunity to, one, let people create their own drinks, but also everyone has the opportunity to make whatever they want. And it's still categorized by low and no calorie to diet drinks or whatever, where you get started. There's some familiarity in the choice, and you can go very easily to just say, I just want regular Coke, or I want cherry Coke or regular Dr. Pepper, or somebody that wants to fiddle through and find a new flavor that they wouldn't be able to get elsewhere, like grape Sprite, which maybe exists now. I don't know. There are all sorts of things coming out these days. So they have that option to test, and then having these extra choices is a real value. So it's important to look at in your business, where is choice creating value and where do you need to streamline and reduce complexity so that it's easier for people to make a choice and move forward. In most cases, you want to be streamlining, but I just wanted to make sure to highlight that there is benefit in adding choices around different options as well. So that's a little bit about structuring complex choices. The freebie worksheet at thebrainybusiness.com/41 goes through an exercise of having you think about your business from the perspective of some of these other companies that are very good at this type of thing. And I talk through that on the episode itself toward the end. If you check the show notes, it'll let you know exactly what minute and second that process starts at. So you can go through and do that. So you can go ahead and check that out, work through that, think about your business, and it'll be really valuable and helpful for you. And come back in the comments. Let me know how that worked for you, what you are going to try, what you revealed in that process, what you found about your business. I would love to hear about it here. Tomorrow's episode is about what we talked about last week on the live. The Brainy Business Podcast tomorrow is all about the announcements from Apple that came out last week. Going to really dig into Apple Card, but talking about all the different concepts of behavioral economics that I've seen in what they have done, what's really genius about it, and what you can learn from their announcements, whether you are with a financial institution. I know a lot of the listeners and subscribers on the page and YouTube and all of that are from financial institutions. A lot of my clients are from there. But also it's really useful information for any type of business. So talking about anticipation and expectations, their subscriber models they're talking about, framing comes up a lot, herding comes up in the conversation, also talking about the power of celebrity. I know people have talked about how many celebrities they had and the lack of pricing, why that's a really smart move. If you haven't yet listened to episode 5, The Truth About Pricing, you should check that out. If you have, you're probably not surprised that I'm saying that that was a really smart thing of them to do. So that, again, is episode 42 of the podcast coming out tomorrow. If you're watching this after April 5th, you would be able to go ahead and check that out right now at thebrainybusiness.com/42. And next week on the live, we'll be digging into those Apple announcements, Apple Card, and things like that. So I'd love to see you to come back and check that out. I am going to be having those lives occur in a little bit more of a random, less planned out fashion starting next week. So if you want to know when lives are going to be coming and happening, you need to like and follow the Facebook page. So if you've not already done that, it's, well, here if you're watching live, but at facebook.com/thebrainybiz, and you can just like the page and go ahead and follow. I also post all of these to the YouTube channel, which is at youtube.com/c/thebrainybusiness. So you can go there, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Would love to have you join the group, have questions in the comments. And again, go ahead and shout out on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you prefer to go, and ask me your questions about behavioral economics that I can answer in an upcoming episode of the live and or featuring on the Brainy Business Podcast, which I love to do. So thank you in advance for liking, following, subscribing, chatting, commenting, sharing, whatever it is that you're going to do. I appreciate you all. And it was great to tell you a little bit about structuring complex choices. I look forward to answering your questions next week. And until then, I would just like to say thanks again for watching and learning with me. And remember to be thoughtful.